How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Are we sleeping on the All Blacks? Just a little bit, maybe. I feel like the All Blacks are going a little bit under the radar so far. I understand completely France, South Africa and Ireland are most people's favourites for the World Cup at this point, but I'm not willing to write off the All Blacks just yet. I'm going to talk about that in this video, look ahead to their game with Italy and their team selection, which came out today, and look at the style of play that New Zealand have displayed so far this year, and also I think what they might need to do to be able to have a run at this World Cup. So a few different things to get into in this video. Drop a comment down below, give me your thoughts on what you've made of the All Blacks so far, both earlier this year in the Rugby Championship and so far at the World Cup as well. Make sure you like the video and also don't forget subscribe to the channel. But let's get into it. So I'm intrigued to see the reaction to that question. Are the All Blacks under the radar? Because I feel like a lot of the feeling around the team, possibly in New Zealand, is a bit negative at the moment. I could be wrong in that regard, but I just still do think that they are going under the radar. And as I said in the intro, understandably at this moment in time, France, obviously because they've beaten New Zealand and the World Cup is at home, are probably placed higher above them. Ireland above them, particularly after beating the Springboks, and just kind of the fact they're the number one team in the world, what we've seen from that Irish team over the last few years. And the Springboks, even though they didn't win the Rugby Championship, they did meet New Zealand at Twickenham. And I think everyone thinks they have a squad and a game plan which could potentially win this World Cup. So I understand why those three teams are placed higher than New Zealand. But I still think New Zealand could do it. And it's a little bit more of a long shot than those three other teams I mentioned. But I still look back on what we saw, particularly against South Africa in that game in the Rugby Championship. The speed of play, the power of their forward pack, the way they could blow the Springboks away in the opening 20 minutes of that game. They have to find a higher level of consistency, no question about it, New Zealand at this moment in time. But you look at the team, you look at the squad they have, they are still capable of hurting any team in the world at this tournament. So don't sleep on them just yet. That's kind of my feelings towards them at this moment in time. Don't forget how they did play. Yes, they need to find consistency. I think that was always the thing, wasn't it? Even when we look back on the Rugby Championship and we look back at some of their best performances, there was this element of kind of being hot and cold, might be a little bit too harsh, but a side that fluctuated in the level of their performance. If they can try and level that out and find a good balance in it, then, I don't know, a lot of those players have won lots in their careers when it comes to knockout games and tight games like that, looking like they're going to be playing South Africa, most likely in the quarterfinal. What an unbelievable quarterfinal that is, by the way. But I just wonder, whether that All Blacks team will quietly, whilst fully respecting the Springboks as they always do because it's such a rivalry for them anyway, will just quietly be thinking, maybe we could do a job on them. Maybe we could get ourselves over the line against Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus and all those boys. We'll wait and see, but I still feel like there's a possibility at least that could be the case because of what we've seen them produce so far. I guess that's kind of what I'm basing it on. I understand against France it was all a little bit disappointing, but I think they'll beat Italy, which is the game we'll get onto now. I think they will come second in that group. Then you're into a quarterfinal, and who knows what's going to happen. We've seen plenty of things normally actually not go the way of New Zealand over the years at World Cups, but funny things happen to teams once you get into the latter stages. All right, so I'll tell you what, let's get into the team for the Italy game. There it is up on your screen. Many of you would have seen it already. Going back to what I mentioned just a second ago, you look at the squad, still a really strong squad. And importantly, I think, actually, you look at some of the players that are kind of returning into the team. Shannon Frizzell in there, Tyrell Lomax, Geordie Barrett as well. So some strength in depth is coming into it as well, which is going to be absolutely crucial for, I think, whoever wins this World Cup. We know that injuries and suspensions play a part, but a squad of the quality of the New Zealand, for example, that can stay healthy is going to be absolutely pivotal. And also we've got to mention, obviously, Sam White. Look, 149th test is utterly bonkers. Like Alan Wynne-Jones when he reached those sorts of numbers. You look at it and just think, how on earth are these guys, with the physicality that they get put through over the course of their careers, let alone just the international games, how they're able to rack up that amount of caps is quite exceptional. So congratulations to him. Over the years, I suppose him and Brodie Retallick have been the most consistent, both in terms of selection and also in terms of quality second row pairing that we've seen probably in recent times over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So awesome for him. Awesome for him to hit that milestone. And let's hope, from a New Zealand perspective anyway, that he can mark it with a pretty good result, because they do need a decent victory against Italy. Don't forget about the Italians. They're obviously outsiders to get out of the group, but they've got 2 more games left against the All Blacks and against France. You look at the bonus points being picked up in the pool so far as well. Italy need to win one of those games, which is probably unlikely, but, and it is a big, big but, you never know. And then all of a sudden, that could be a massive spanner in the works to what happens in this group. You look at as well, France not picking up bonus points earlier in the tournament. It's probably not going to come down to that, but you never know. So it's worth keeping an eye on. I think if Italy are going to win, they're more likely to do it against the French and a Six Nations opponent that they play more regularly for some reason. I think that often helps, rather than an All Blacks team that they have never beaten. So final point I just wanted to go through, what do New Zealand need to improve? Kind of what sort of game plan actually at this stage do we think is going to win a World Cup? First of all, I think the set piece needs to be rock solid. This was something we saw improve at the start of this season, something that was maybe a little bit shaky, particularly last year and some of the disappointing results that they had. It had improved a lot so far this year. That has to stay the same as well. I think we've seen it in this World Cup so far, that if your set piece is not working, if your set piece can't hold its own, then you're going to be in an absolute world of trouble. It's definitely an area that the All Blacks have looked to improve in 2023, so they need to keep that as high a standards as they possibly can heading into the final couple of pool fixtures and then looking ahead to the quarter-final. And I also think they then need to be completely confident in their game plan, because I think you look at France, you look at Ireland, you look at South Africa, they are all incredibly confident in what they can do well at the moment. Even South Africa, after losing to Ireland, I think will look back at that game and still feel they have a game plan that could potentially win them this World Cup if they can clear up a few areas. I think New Zealand have shown us, to hark back what I mentioned earlier in the video, the first 20 minutes against the Springboks earlier in the Rugby Championship, the first half performance against Argentina as well. When they are on it and they will damage anyone. But can they be confident of that in the quarter-final? And I suppose importantly as well, what happens when they're not getting ultra-quick ball and their forward pack isn't fully on top? Because that was maybe one of the interesting things in Ireland's victory over the Springboks, was it was a pretty even game. There were moments where the South African set piece looked to be on top. There were moments where South Africa looked to have the momentum in that game, but Ireland ultimately won the arm wrestle. Is this New Zealand team at this moment in time capable of winning an arm wrestle? And that is perhaps the area that there maybe is the most question marks when it comes to the style of games we're going to see in quarterfinals and semi-finals, and what the All Blacks need to be able to achieve. When they get on top of teams, they're capable of hurting anyone. But when it's 50-50 or things aren't quite going their way, are they able to problem solve out on the pitch? That's probably been an area which they've come up short over the last year to 18 months, I would suggest. So let's see what happens. I still think New Zealand are capable of winning the World Cup, whilst at this moment in time you probably have them 4th in the list of teams that are most likely to. But having lost to France in the opening game, they've dropped under most people's radars. It's all a little bit negative around the team. I still think there is a possibility they get to a quarter-final, presuming they do get to a quarter-final and don't mess it up against Italy, this week. I still think there's a possibility they could potentially go further in this competition than people perhaps realise. But you let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think that I'm chatting absolute nonsense there, or do you think maybe I have a bit of a point? It's still a strong All Blacks team. Of that, there is no question. Can they get their game into a position that it will win knockout rugby? That is the big question mark over them. And we probably won't find that out until we get to the knockouts, which is interesting as well. But I look forward to reading your comments. Make sure you like the video. If you can share it as well, whack it in all your rugby WhatsApp groups, that sort of thing. It massively helps. And hit that subscribe button. My aim is to get to 10k as quickly as possible, ideally by the end of the World Cup. But if we can hit it sooner than that, then that's just a huge bonus. So make sure you subscribe, comment down below, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.